Thanks for joining us for tonight's cybersecurity workshop. My name is Eric Romero, and I serve as the Director of Information Services here at the City of Baton Rouge and Parish of East Baton Rouge. Over the past several years, we've made tremendous strides in making City Parish a more digital government. We've expanded our network, upgraded many outdated systems, and launched our award-winning Open Data BR and GIS programs. But with all these new technologies being implemented, we also realize that it's imperative to protect and secure them from cyber threats. As we developed a more structured cybersecurity program, it became clear that the cyber bad guys are not just targeting local government, but every organization or person in our community could be a target. Tonight's workshop is part of our community approach to cybersecurity, where we help educate our residents on the dangers and risks of cyber attacks and ways we can work together to prevent them so that we can truly be a safe and secure digital Baton Rouge. Before we get started, I wanted to cover a bit of housekeeping. So tonight we'll be using the chat feature in WebEx to take any questions you may have. So feel free to submit those. Feel free to submit those in the chat, and we'll answer those as at the end of each speaker's session. So the mayor should be joining us. She's working out some technical issues right now, but I'm going to go ahead and introduce our two speakers first. So first we have Teresa Callaghan. Teresa started her career in technology as a PC land specialist for the Baton Rouge City Court. So that's where we actually first met. She's since transitioned in the cybersecurity field and now serves as the cybersecurity specialist for Energy Corporation. Teresa is also the Dean of Coding and lead instructor for the WALLS project, whose Tech Academy provides tech-based programming to teens 13 to 18 years old. Next speaker will be Ibrahim Abe Agili. Did I get that right, Abe? Close. Abe is a professor of computer science and cybersecurity at Louisiana State University with a joint appointment between the Division of Computer Science and the Center of Computation and Technology. His research has been featured in media outlets worldwide, especially in the area of virtual reality security and forensics and mobile application security. So welcome to you both. Before we get started, I just want to mention a little bit more about our community approach to cybersecurity. So when we first started, it was very basic, using social media for outreach and working with our our departments inside of City Parish to increase our cyber awareness. We understood that in the IT department, but a lot of the other departments did not understand the importance of cyber. So we put some effort into educating the departments on the importance of cybersecurity. And quite honestly, the media has helped with that, because with all the ransomware attacks, the city of Atlanta being down, the city of New Orleans being down, the pipeline that was shut down, all of those things was covered by the mainstream media. And so more and more folks were picking up on the importance of cybersecurity. So we partnered with the Center for Infrastructure Assurance and Security out of the University of Texas, San Antonio. And they chose 3 municipalities, Baton Rouge being one of them, to help create a framework for a community cybersecurity program. So we're hoping to advance our efforts, by, remember I said it was social media and some presentations and more internal. We're hoping to advance those efforts by using this new CIAS framework. So we're going to be working with K through 12 schools on ways to educate students on proper cyber hygiene. Kids are being handed technology at an ever younger age, and they need to be taught how to properly use and secure that technology. We're going to be working with higher education to help recruit and train candidates to fill the ever-growing number of cybersecurity professionals needed in the workforce. We're going to work with the business community to ensure that they're protected. Think about if a small business's data was compromised and sold. Their reputation would be ruined, and they would likely not recover from this. And most importantly, we're going to work with the general public to notify you of current threats and how to protect yourself and families from those threats. We had our kickoff meeting for this program about 2 weeks ago. So we're in the very early planning stages. So stay tuned for more information on the program as we move forward. And I see the mayor is still not on, so we are going to go ahead and move forward. So with that, Teresa, would you like to kick us off with your presentation?
Sure, absolutely. I can get started. Okay, try to give me a moment to share my screen. And hello, everyone. I'd love to be interactive, but I know we probably can't come off on mute. So if I ask for any interaction, I would love for you guys to just drop some information in the chat, and I will be able to pick up that information. So one thing I want to say is that my name is actually pronounced Teresa, but I won't charge that to you, Eric. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen, and we're gonna get started with cybersecurity. So just a little bit about me. I've been doing cybersecurity for quite some time, and it is definitely a passion for me. So tonight's presentation is going to be about data security, which data security is a very extremely important topic. So please bring all the questions that you can that we'll be able to answer. So welcome to our cybersecurity data security webinar. I am considered a cybersecurity specialist senior for Entergy. And during our webinar tonight, I'm going to discuss information about cybersecurity topics on data breaching and also strategies on how you can guard against data breaches. So basically, I'm going to deliver sustainable information and best practices to protect yourself as well as your customers for small businesses. So I will give you like a broad range between from a consumer perspective and also for small businesses, because I mean, just to be able to accept like credit card payments or information for your customers is very important. So you do have to know ways of actually guarding against that. So basically, unfortunately, cybersecurity attacks and data breaching are still a very big issue. So that's why we have different seminars just like this one. So that way you'll be able to kind of have a knowledge base on how to protect yourself. So as far as some statistic information, data breaching on the first quarter of our 2022 this year, 14% rise since 2021. And then on another note, for 2021, it actually rose 68% from 2020. And we all know the reason why the rise happened is because it was kind of sort of from pandemic. A lot of people doing like maybe online shopping. You were utilizing your credit cards a whole lot more. And of course, that's when data breaches happen. And also people, you know, they find ways of what adversaries, should I say, will find ways to capture your information. So like I say, I'm going to show you some different strategies that you can use to be able to guard against that and guard your information. Because one thing about data breaching that we must all know and understand is that it's important because people can confiscate your personal information as well as your identity. All right, so just a little bit as far as about data breaching from a consumer perspective. Just drop in the chat and let me know, do you know the actual meaning of data breaching? You may have heard of it. You may have heard like, hey, somebody got my credit card numbers. But I want to actually go into a little bit of in depth on what that actually means. And then we're going to talk about some preventive measures that you can take as consumers and as small business owners to be able to go in and actually help yourself and guard against it. So let's just talk about the definition of data breaching. So the true meaning of data breaching is basically an incident that occurred maybe in a business, or perhaps just the loss of your personal possessions, where your information has been stolen and also or taken out of a system by an adversary without knowledge or authorization of the system owner. So it can happen anywhere. Somebody could have a small camera behind you and take a picture of your credit card numbers. So it can happen absolutely anywhere. It doesn't matter how secure we try to be as far as making sure our credit card numbers aren't exposed or doing certain things. It can happen anywhere. So that's why we're here tonight, so I can tell you how to guard against it, and also how to make sure that you're well aware of what's happening to your personal information. All right. So now that we kind of know that data breaching has something to do with information that is accidentally, we would call it leaked. So now we're going to talk about some examples. So some examples of data breaching is the loss or theft of a hard copy, like a note. Most people write their passwords down along with their username. Many people have a bad habit of it. They think, well, hey, I'm going to forget it. I'm going to write it in my notes on my phone. A lot of people do it every single day. So drop in the chat and let me know how many of y'all even try to attempt to write at least your password down on a sheet of paper and maybe put it in your wallet. The best of us do it. Even cybersecurity specialists do it at sometimes. And then also, if you have a loss of a thumb drive that has personal information on it, a computer is a very big topic and hot topic, because we think that just because we have passwords on these computers, that the information that's inside of it cannot be taken. But unfortunately, that's not true. If you lose your laptop, there are so many different softwares that are out there that I can crack a password in seconds. So that's one thing that we have to know. And then also your mobile devices. Mobile devices is a huge risk taker whenever it comes to storing personal information. So I won't get into the weeds of mobile security, but definitely just know that your phone is secure to a certain extent. All right. And so then we're going to talk about the omission of an adversary. Why would someone want to take my personal information? Of course, they gain access. They gain access to your laptop, emails. They actually gain access to computer networks, even sending an email with personal data to the wrong person. That is that's actually an act of a data breach. And unfortunately, sometimes we type so fast that we make a mistake and we end up sending an email to someone in our organization at times, and they'll send you something back saying, hey, this wasn't meant for me. The best of us have done it. I have done it. So one thing that we do know is, for one, is make sure you know what you're doing whenever you're sending an email. I personally always type my email content first. Then after I'm good with my content of my email, then I put the senders in my email. So that way I can really focus on who am I sending this email to. And as far as laptops are concerned, adversaries would love to see a laptop just laying around. And at times let's just say I'm at a Starbucks, right? I wanted to go get my coffee. I leave my laptop there unattended, but maybe even the password are accessible. It takes seconds for somebody to pass by you because you're busy trying to pick up your coffee, They grab your laptop, walk out the door. It's nothing you can do about it at that point unless you see what happens. So those are some of the things that we need to look at and pay attention to as consumers whenever we are handling things like mobile devices. So that's what adversaries they look for. They're on a mission to see how they can gain access to your personal information. All right. So now we kind of got some information as far as data breaching. Let's go ahead and talk about what are some of the causes. So here are 5 of the main reasons data breaches happen. And even if it's not something from a consumer perspective, this can be from an organization's perspective as well. So one cause will be that many organizations, they fail to patch security vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities are huge. That's something that on a day-to-day basis, we have scans going constantly where I work. And literally any vulnerability we see, we have to go in and try to figure out how we're going to mitigate these actual vulnerabilities, because we don't want any of our systems, which we consider them critical systems, to actually get hacked. So the main thing we're doing is we're in prevention mode 95% of the time that we are at work, and just running our operation. So that's something to think about when you're running a small business as well. Is it may be worth knowing any of the vulnerabilities that you may have within your organization. All right. Then we're going to talk about human error. That's one cause. Well, the second cause is human error. Now, one thing I know about human error is that email that you made a mistake and sent to somebody could have very well had someone's social security number on it. That actually happened to me last week. But luckily, I'm a trustworthy person. They were just doing a verification of personal, you know how you'll have a personal reference and they're doing a verification for personal reference. The person who was in the HR made a mistake and sent me the person's work verification with her social and everything on it. But those type of things is what happens. That's why I say slow down and know what you're sending and who you're sending it to. Our next cause is going to be malware. Malware is something that we probably rarely hear about, but we guard against it constantly. So malware, and I would say you may have heard the terms of an antivirus or a virus. It's the same thing, except that it has a different encryption as far as to your system. So whenever you're going to guard against malware, it's one thing to know that whatever device that you use, they have some sort of a protection. So we are constantly updating malware. We're constantly updating any of our systems that have the anti-malware on it, and making sure that we're guarding against these type of things for our network. And then our next cause of a data breach is insider misusage, meaning that somebody gets really relaxed, they start sending out their own personal information by email. And I've seen it numerous amounts of times, is that they're trying to take care of business at work. So they go in and they send documents out to, let's just say they're buying a new house, right? Somebody buying a house, they're sending their realtor documents that may have personal information on it from their organization, and they send it out. And a lot of times whenever they have someone that is actually inside of your network monitoring your email traffic, you don't know that the personal information that you're sending is actually being monitored even by your IT department, but let alone somebody else that's an adversary outside of your organization. So when you send that personal information, then it can very well be exposed to someone that can take your information in. So that's cause number 4. Just misuse of your own information and then sending it through to an organization. Sometimes, whether you believe it or not, it's best to take care of personal information at home, because even though we at home still get hacked, most people go against organization or small businesses. So sometimes keeping your personal information at home is definitely a plus. All right, and then also the next fifth one is gonna be considered our physical theft of data carrying devices. Physical theft, and that's what we just talked about. When you turn around and you go to Starbucks, you go get your coffee and whatever you paid for, and you have your laptop sitting down, somebody just passed right by, grab your laptop or your phone, they keep going. It happens to the best of us. It may not have happened to you now, but it's a possibility. You leave yourself for those vulnerabilities whenever you're not thinking like an adversary. So one thing that in my training as far as a cybersecurity specialist, we are taught to think like a hacker. If I can take any information from somebody, where would I get it from? So even a person that's just sitting there doing their own work in a Starbucks, they may look for that vulnerability to say, hey, she's going to go get up and get her coffee. As soon as she gets up and turns around, I'm going to swipe her portable information. So, like I said, it happens to the best of us. So, just by the information I'm giving you as far as cause of data breaching, I mean, how many of y'all are familiar with any of these, or even this may have happened to you, but you didn't know this at some point. All right, and so these are all good things that you need to look for and you guard against. Now, here's the big thing. I want to talk to you about how you can prevent cybersecurity attacks from happening to you as a business and then also as a consumer. All right, so everybody still with me? Give me a thumbs up if you are. Or give me a thumbs up if I have your attention. Thank you, Lisa. All right, y'all. So now let's talk about cybersecurity as far as prevention, because this is the only way you can guard against your information being taken or even your customers, consumers. You have to, as a business and as a consumer, you have to take responsibility for cybersecurity. So even though you have your specialists or your IT people, but us as consumers, we have to sit down and think about, hey, what can be the worst possible thing that would happen to me if somebody were to take my information? All right. So let's talk about prevention for a second. So I have a couple key points that I want to bring to you as far as prevention. One of them is creating a complex password. A complex password, meaning that it's different from the account that you're using, because sometimes they literally have people that use password for a password. And I'm like, I get it. That's what you want to use, but sometimes people will actually use password. Then also changing your password, studies have found that even changing your password does not stop you from actually getting hacked as an organization, because they have things such as keyloggers that somebody can actually get downloaded to your computers, and different sniffers that they can use. Even if you change your password every 90 days consistently, they can still get in. So one thing that I know is the password complexity is a must. And also being careful of certain things as far as looking to see if you have anything physical connected to your computer. That's a physical sense. And then also making sure you're not clicking on unfamiliar links like phishings and stuff like that. So even though creating a complex password, it does help in a sense, but there are other things that you can use to actually guard against somebody actually getting into your personal laptop or even a computer at work. So, and then also one thing that I can tell people is we out of habit, what we do is we type our password in, and let's just say I have a coworker that's sitting over my shoulder. And literally, if you know my keystrokes and you constantly see my keystrokes, and especially if I may be a one finger typer, so I mean, some people are not there yet with using all their fingers for typing. So, and I mean, it's fine. But whenever you're using one finger for typing, somebody can see your password just as clear as day, and that's including your actual phone itself. So a lot of times whenever you're keying in your actual password, even at work, even though, I mean, we have integrity at work with our coworkers, but still, you still want to guard against any mishaps. So if you have to key your password in, I would at least try not to do it where they have people standing around you when you're putting in your passwords, because all I have to do is look at your keystrokes and I just found your password. All right. And so the next thing is multi functional authentication. That is an absolute must, especially for things like emails, especially for things even like your even for your computer. So every time I log into my computer, especially from a different place, it will send me an alert to my phone. So I can accept to say, hey, this is me, or certain things, especially email. Google has a very, very secured um multi-factor authentication where if you log into any of my accounts, it's automatically sending an alert to my phone. I even have to approve it in order for it to go through. So that's one thing that you may want to consider. Anything that you do, having a multi-function a multi-factor authentication. Social media pages should have a multi-factor. I mean, even though you have passwords, even Facebook, it offers multi-factor authentication because you don't want somebody else to get into your actual account. And then also, like I said, your Google accounts and things of that nature, you definitely want to be able to make sure that whatever you can use multi-functions on, do so. Even your cell phone bill. If you have a cell phone, I have I have a passcode or a passphrase on anything that I have. That way, if somebody calls in and say, "Hey, they may have my date of birth, they may have my information, my name, but if you don't have my passcode or the information you need, you will not get into my actual account itself." So that's another way to actually guard against somebody having access to your information. And then the next thing is shopping with a credit card. That is an absolute must, especially online. I live by it. I do not put my debit card numbers online for nothing. And the reason why I say that is because if you have a bank card, that is where you have access to your main account. That's where I get my paycheck. This is where all my money goes. And so I have seen people, and people have called me and said that my account's frozen. The bank has to refund me my money because somebody didn't got into my account. And 9 times out of 10, it was shopping online. So one thing that I do is I encourage a either prepaid credit card, or I would use a major credit card online. So that way, if somebody gets your major credit card, it's not tying up your main account in the money, waiting on the bank to send it back to you. So I encourage all my friends, I encourage anybody that I know to never use a bank card or a debit card online for nothing. So that's one thing that I absolutely do. And then another thing is that with shopping, it's more of a liability to use just your banking information. And then also one thing I'm gonna throw in there is personal checks. A lot of times we'll be quick. I'll write a personal check. I give it to somebody here. I want to pay something. One thing we fail to realize is on our personal checks, our account number and our routing number is on those personal checks. So if somebody wanted to take my personal check and key it in as a check to be able to order something and send it to some bogus address, I've seen this happen to people. Then they have access to a checking account and my routing number. That's all they need in order for them to go and order whatever they want online and put that information in. So one thing I don't do is, if you're not a major company, I do not write out a personal check to you. I never write out a personal check to anyone that is actually a person, should I say, besides an organization that like a big company. All right. And then another thing that we have, the next thing is that watching for fraud. So monitoring your accounts. Don't be afraid to look at bank statements. Make sure that you know what transactions you did, what transactions you didn't have. And then also, I mean, one thing I can tell you is that globally, 95% of the time, if you experience a data breach, that person has your personal identification. So once your personal identification is taken, social security number, name, date of birth, address, all of that information is personal information. Once somebody has access to that, they pretty much have access to you. And I have seen time and time again where people have really gotten their identity taken. Okay. People have gotten their identity taken, and by all means, they've really had to suffer the consequence of it. And the last thing is setting up account alerts. Whenever you have a credit card or any type of account that gives you the ability to set up an alert, by all means, do so. All my credit cards, if you swipe it, it sends me a text message. It can be set up for even $1. So if somebody swipes my MasterCard, it's sending me a text message with the amount of the transaction. So those are things that are actually pretty good for you to guard against. All right, and then just for time's sake, I want to tell y'all about some strategies that we use for data security. So data security refers to as the practice of protecting your data from theft and loss. So these are different strategies that we can use. Even though I gave you some from a consumer perspective, I want to also tell you about it from a organization perspective. So data security is only, a way for customers with their personal information. If it's being used improperly, you would actually know. So here are just a few strategies that we use for, or as far as organizations, and also for as just for a consumer. Firewalls is your first line of defense. If you're a big organization like city or even Entergy, definitely use firewalls. And then also authentication, which we talked about, encryption. There's actually encryption software that you can use for emails, files, personal information. You can actually password protect some of your personal information. And then also making sure that your hardware security is intact, meaning that you have the latest patches, meaning that you're using things such as denial attacks, and also you're making sure that your software that you're installed is up to date. You always keep everything to the latest and greatest. And then the biggest of them all, for as a security strategy, is backups. If you do not have a backup of all the data in your organization, you are really setting yourself up for a major vulnerability. And that's absolutely major vulnerability, because being though, if you say get hit with ransomware, 95% of the time, you may not recover that data. So if you have a constant backup, we back up constantly on a rotation, sometimes daily, night. That way you won't miss but 24 hours worth of data. It is very important for you to subscribe to a backup system. And as a consumer, you can actually download backup software to you can actually download backup software to your computers, your personal computer, and keep that information. Now, one other I am going to tell you about is called Acronis. I love Acronis. That's something you can use as far as a cloud-based backup system. So now the fun has came to an end. So I'm gonna kind of conclude everything that we talked about and leave open for questions. So the key takeaway is data breach. It's real. It's something that does happen. We did talk about the causes of data breach, and then also how to prevent data breaching. So take this information that I gave you, by all means, try to utilize it, and also do some of your own research as a small business and also as a consumer. And don't forget the strategies that I told you about that will help you stay secure. On my screen, you'll see that here are some helpful websites, and they're going to also drop this information in the chat. So as far as if you want to know about news, if you want to know as far as about your research for cybersecurity for business leaders, these are the websites that you can go on. And from a consumer's perspective, staying safe online, that is the last link that I have on here. That is something that you can use for as a consumer's perspective. So all of these are really good ways of just having found knowledge of possible breaching for your possible breaching and knowing what's going on in the cyber world. All right, and so I'm not sure if I have time for questions, Eric. I'll leave that up to
No,
you.
we'll still go through the questions. So one of them is, what do you think about using a credit card via PayPal rather than keying it into multiple sites, i.e. Amazon won't let you remove a card number that was used there a long time ago?
Well, I know that PayPal is a secured site. That's something that you have to look into. So I don't have a problem with using a credit card on PayPal. My personal main bank account for as a debit card, I won't use on PayPal. And it's just a personal choice that I kind of protect my regular bank account.
I
So if I
think
have like a business account, I will.
I think also too, so I sit on the supervisory committee for our board on our credit union, and um, in hearing the director speak, I think the problem with using the debit account, it is directly tied to your checking account. So if that gets hacked, they could deplete your account, and oftentimes those debit cards have um, or let me change that. The credit cards have much more protection around them to where they will reimburse you if you can prove that it was a hack. We always work with our members to try to reimburse if we can identify if the debit card was hacked, but there's just a lot more protections around what the banks can do with credit cards versus debit cards.
Yep. Just my rule of thumb has always been to never tie anything that's online to my main bank account.
Yep.
So yeah, absolutely.
And then please advise the name of the cloud-based backup software for PCs.
Okay, that is called Acronis, and I can drop it in the chat for the spelling of it. But it's called Acronis. It's a really good backup. I have quite a few of them. I'll drop in the chat, but one that I use and one that we use is Acronis. Yeah, and I'll drop it in the chat for as the spelling.
And then, so is it safe for Google to store our passwords if we have multi-factor authentication enabled?
On my personal laptop, but being that I have the multi authentication on my laptop itself, I'm okay with Google remembering my password per se, but anywhere else, I wouldn't store my Google password. So I don't see anything wrong with it, but like I say, my laptop itself, I have to you won't be able to just get into my laptop itself. I would definitely do like an multi authentication on my actual laptop itself. And then also, and I'm not sure if you've ever heard of it, but your BIOS has a password. Only way somebody can go in and change the password to your actual laptop is to go into your BIOS. If you never set a password to your BIOS, they can get in automatically and wipe out your password. So I would encourage any and everyone to make sure you set a BIOS password to your computers. And if you do that, they can't do nothing to your computer, even trying to get the even trying to use software to get your password. So if you're gonna store your passwords on your computer, at least set your BIOS password.
All right, thanks, Teresa. You covered a lot there. So unpatched machines, human error, malware, backups, passwords, etc. It's a lot to unpack there. It's also shows why cybersecurity awareness and protection is so important. We've implemented a lot of security technology over the past few years, but we still consider our employees our first line of cyber defense. If they don't click that bad link, we don't have a problem. So educating the city parish employees is a very important part of our strategy. And all of these are the type of things that we push out to them, and explain to them that the information we push out in the work environment is also applicable in your home environment, or even if you have a side job. It applies to everything all the time because we're constantly um, touching technology now. So we will go ahead and move on to our next speaker. Professor Bagili, are you ready to go? I think he's going to share with us some concerns with virtual reality security.
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, excellent. Let's see. All right, can you see my my screen? All right, very good. So thank you today for having me talk to you all, and hopefully you'll enjoy my quick presentation. I do want to thank the city of Baton Rouge, Eric, Tammy, and also Greg Trahan that introduced me to all of you. So thank you all for have given me the opportunity to talk to people. So very quickly, why am I here? I actually just came to Baton Rouge. I came from Connecticut, where I was at the University of New Haven. President Tate has launched the Pentagon and Scholarship First strategy, and there's a cluster hire that's focusing on cybersecurity because it's one of the major initiatives the university wants to move to. I was previously the lead of the CAECO, which is Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Operations, and also the director of the Connecticut Institute of Technology and the Cybersecurity Center at the University of New Haven. I do a lot of research in cyber forensics and offensive cybersecurity. And why am I here? Food. There's great food here, and as you can tell, I like food. In the picture, you see my colleague Aisha, who just joined us as well. She moved from another institution, and both of us just arrived this semester. So, with that said, it's important to also note that the university just became a center of academic excellence in cyber operations, and it's the only one in Louisiana out of 21 universities across the country. And I believe we are the only SFS program in Louisiana. I'm not 100% sure about those. About that specific one, but Golden Richard is leading those efforts, and he started the progress or progress towards that before our arrival. So what this really tells you is you have a top tier institution in cybersecurity right here in Baton Rouge at your disposal, and part of what we have to do is connect with the community, and that's why I'm here today as well. So let's start with this. I just wanted to potentially ask, and I'm not sure I'll be able to see things very clearly, but maybe you can let me know. Has anyone ever sold their cell phone before? I see a no. Anybody else? Nobody's ever sold their cell phone? I see another no, no, many no's. That's a good thing. If you do sell your cell phone, you got to make sure that the data is encrypted before you wipe it and you sell it. And maybe you should not sell your cell phone. And the reason why people and companies like buying your cell phones because there's a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of gold, but when you take thousands of old cell phones, they can actually get a lot of gold out of the chips and reuse that gold for one reason or another. So with that said, this is a small video I'd like to share with you. When I was at New Haven, we had a reporter come to us, and he was very interested in secondhand phones and what they might hold and what they might not hold. And I thought this would be a really interesting way to show you the impact of not wiping your phones correctly.
It's a 17 billion market. Use smartphones. The accounting firm Deloitte Global predicts 120 million devices will be bought and sold in the aftermarket this year.
But if you're selling, the information left on that phone could put you and your family at risk, even when you think you've deleted it. Troubleshooter Brad Drazen is here with a word of warning if you're looking to make some quick cash.
Technology is changing so quickly these days. We're changing our phones
more and more frequently, right? If you don't trade in your old device, there are plenty of ways to sell it, of course, but the personal data that you leave behind could make that transaction a losing proposition.
Smartphones make life simple and convenient, but they're a roadmap of our lives, and millions of people potentially expose that roadmap to strangers when they sell their used devices. The troubleshooters wanted to know just how risky that sale can be. We logged on to Craigslist and found dozens of smartphones for sale at a wide range of prices. We bought an Android phone from a young father.
I've had it for a couple of months and then I got another phone.
And another from Darius, a mail carrier.
Is there a charger?
Yeah.
Okay.
We also went to a local pawn shop.
Can I see that iPhone?
Owner Dennis Norton says when he agrees to buy a phone from someone who walks in off the street, they often do a factory reset as a precaution.
We do the best due diligence possible. If we don't see any red flags, more times than not, we are willing to purchase the phone.
We bought an iPhone and an Android phone here.
70 on this phone and 670.
All right.
We brought all 4 devices to the University of New Haven's Cyber Forensics Research Group to see how much information they could recover.
You're taking a very deep dive into someone's life by just simply looking at their phone.
The lab's founder, Abe Bajili, says they only utilize tools that are free and accessible to the general public.
We just had to use a computer and, the connectors that came with the phones, and we were able to gain access to this specific data.
The iPhone 5 was secure because the user had downloaded the latest iOS upgrade.
The more recent iPhone operating systems are harder to get into.
But the 3 Android devices were a fertile ground for personal data.
We actually ran an Android backup.
On each of the devices, the research team recovered the names and email addresses of the prior owner, plus dozens of deleted text messages and images. On one phone, the team discovered a physical address and a Wi-Fi password.
I know where the person lives. I know what they do. And now I have their Wi-Fi password. What other information can I extract about them? Or can I then use their internet for illegal activities?
But on another Android, they found even more troubling information.
GPS, you've got credit card numbers, URLs.
The expiration date?
The expiration date.
And the CVV code.
Correct. This is everything we need to start making purchases right now.
One digital image contained a gem for a would-be identity thief. This photo of a college class schedule includes a name, address, and social security number.
All the information that we would need to, in fact, take over your full identity.
We went back to the mail carrier who sold us his daughter's old device.
I thought if you uninstall the app and do factory reset, everything should be gone.
Darius is frustrated and says he'll never go down this road again.
It's not worth it. $50 for a phone and it's...
All right. So, are you ever going to sell your phone again? I'm just interested what your thoughts are after watching this. All right, I see a thumbs down, scary. So this was a real thing, right? So they just went and bought phones, brought them over to our lab, and students that are trained in deep cybersecurity technical skills, as well as mobile forensics, were able to do that. And we used open source tools, and we can retrieve a lot of the data that's on your phone. Don't think that because you have an iPhone, you're 100% more secure, because they might be harder to get into, but with the right mindset and the right knowledge, we will also be able to get into some of those devices. So just keep that in mind as you use your phones, and ensure that you encrypt your phones before wiping them and you trying to resell them, just as an example. Okay, so the other thing that we did that was very interesting, we published a paper called Map My Murder, a digital forensic study of mobile health and fitness applications. I was very interested with my students with regards to what kind of data leaks can happen from those fitness applications. Does anyone in here use any fitness applications where they track their runs, or they track anything like that? All right, yes, Fitbit. As you can tell, I probably don't work out as much as I should. But the question is, are you physically healthy? Are you data healthy? Should you share your location and all of your trips? And should you share your fitness data? So I think once we published this paper, the media, caught on to it, and they again came and they wanted to see what they could do to show people the power of the kind of information we can collect from these apps in terms of them being publicly available. So I would like to share this quick video with you to see an actual case study of what could potentially happen.
It's an all-new, tech-connected world. Info exchanged everywhere. Privacy is at a platinum. When it comes to crime, turns out criminals are connected too. They just need an entry point.
Here's one of the websites.
The Cyber Forensics Lab at the University of New Haven has discovered...
So he ran at 8:27 a.m. He started.
When it comes to health fitness apps, that entry point is so wide, you could run a marathon right through it.
What was really interesting is a lot of that stuff was public.
The apps are found on devices like Fitbits, Apple Watches, and booming in popularity. Tracking runs, biking, really anything health and fitness oriented.
And if we go to Map My Fitness,
many are community-based, and all that info can be free to anybody in the world.
So he just ran.
Now we are able to see who that person is and correlate that data with a lot of their online social profiles across many different websites.
And just to prove it, the Cyber Forensics Lab did it, selecting 5 people from the area. Like Robert from Fairfield.
Do you really want to advertise your running route every single day?
He started at 6:03 a.m. Usually takes him around 40 minutes. Just from the MyFitness app, we can see he usually walks his dog around this park.
So now essentially creating a profile about a person, not only about maybe what they like and what they don't like, but also where they're at any given point in time during the day.
Probably parks right here. But that's just the beginning of what others can find out about you. Just dig a little bit deeper with a simple online search.
Across many different government databases that are publicly available.
We know who she is, but let's just call her Nicole from Seymour. Her pictures are all public on Facebook. She usually leaves her house in Seymour for a run in the morning, gone for over an hour. A criminal's opportunity.
3.28 miles, done that 2 days in a row.
Maybe they don't want to murder you, right? But maybe they want to steal something from your house. And they know exactly when you left your home, exactly when you come back.
On the phone, I think.
John from Milford is an avid bike rider. We know from the app, Map My Fitness. During the summer months, he rides to and from work. We know where that is as well. So we waited for him to leave. He usually clocks out after 4 p.m.
I know. You knew I was going to come out?
We knew that from the app, too. And that's not all.
You live in Milford.
Correct.
Right. Usually takes you about half an hour to get to work.
I'm pretty impressed at that.
Usually leave about 7.
Yeah.
Do you vote Republican?
I'm registered, yeah.
We followed the app all the way into the cargo bay.
Literally, yeah. I ride right in the bay and the doors are open in the morning.
Startling. For somebody with 3 daughters?
Somebody was tracking them. They obviously, if she was using this, they could know exactly where she is and what time she leaves. And
so is there an answer to protect yourself and others?
If there are options to make your data private, make sure that you choose those options.
Doesn't mean you can't use the apps that help you navigate life. Just think about how much of your life you want wide open to somebody else's.
All right. So what are your thoughts on this? Any thoughts from the crowd? So next time you're using your fitness, see, that's why I'm not fit, right? I just decided, hey, it's not worth my time. So next time, you're using the apps, make sure that if you're having any of your data, if it's collecting data, if you're interested in tracking, make sure that you're keeping it all private and you're not sharing it all publicly, because a lot of people want to share their, fitness publicly, probably because they want to show off. and they want to compete with other people and so on and so forth. And by doing that, you are essentially compromising a lot of things about you as an individual. And I'm not sure that that's the best way, um, to work on your fitness. All right. The last thing I want to kind of talk about, that's really interesting, is this work that we did in virtual reality security and forensics. Does anyone in here own a virtual reality headset by any chance? Like maybe the Oculus or the Quest? Okay. So my grandkids do. So here's the interesting thing. I think it was one of the hottest selling items over Christmas last year. And I think that it's going to continue to be, interesting over the next couple of years to see where that goes, specifically with Facebook rebranding as Meta and focusing on the metaverse and so on and so forth. All right. So virtual reality is interesting for a couple of reasons. One, because it's immersive. You feel that you're really in a new place when you put those glasses on, and you are completely immersed into this environment that we can create for you. When I did this research a couple of years ago and I shared it at a conference, I had somebody come up to me. There was a lady that came up to me, and she's from the business world. She's like, "This is not gonna be. This research is not worth my time because people are not gonna use virtual reality." And I'm like, "Well, okay." And now with everything switching to that world, I think that I'd like to maybe she's listening right now. Maybe she, I'd like to tell her, hey, maybe you were wrong, right? And the interesting thing with doing research is always thinking a step ahead in terms of, okay, there's going to be new technology. What kind of new effects could it have on the human being? Now, why is VR interesting? Because it basically covers all of everything that you see, and it puts you in this other new environment, right? There's also, of course, mixed reality, which is now being used by the U.S. military. I think they bought $450 million worth of HoloLenses as just one example. Okay, so with VR, you could be susceptible to what we call perceptual manipulation attacks. What is that? So imagine you're inside a VR environment, and we can change certain things in the environment because we're able to hack into your device. So some of the things we were able to do is almost create a ransomware for your glasses, where we take over your vision, so to speak, until you take it off and you pay the ransom, and then we can give you back access to your virtual world. The other really cool thing that made worldwide headlines is this concept called the human joystick attack, which we invented. If you look at this picture here, when you set up your virtual reality room, what you do is you go around with a controller and you set up the boundaries of the room. So this is a physical room. And in the physical room, you also have a virtual center. So now imagine you're wearing your headset and you're playing a virtual reality game and you're in the middle of that physical room. Well, if you're playing games, right? Like let's say Longbow right here, that's a bow and arrow game. So you're playing a game, you're shooting an arrow, and we start moving your virtual center very slowly. As a human being, since you're taking part of this task of playing the game, you start compensating for that virtual center, and you start moving forward, for example. So what we wanted to do is, if we move people, can we move people in a physical space without their knowledge or consent? And it turns out that we can. We tested this across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games. And at the bottom here, this is basically, if you imagine the headset was recording all the data from the headset, and that's the room, and that's like the top vision of the room here. You can see that this is what they thought they were doing in terms of staying in the same location, but in reality, they moved from this point to this point. The same thing happened here. This is what they thought they were doing, but then they moved from this point to this point. So in every single instance, we tried this. We did an experimental study, and human subject or human participant study, and in every single instant, almost every time, we were able to move people without their knowledge and consent. And this work was initially funded by the National Science Foundation, and now we're doing some interesting work moving this forward. We were also able to do some other attacks. So to explain this maybe a little better, there was also some news coverage of this. that I'd like to share with you very quickly. And then
virtual and augmented reality. It's an estimated $27 billion market worldwide, and that is expected to catapult to over $209 billion in just 3 years.
Let's go into the tech world, where we're finding everything from medical to military to training applications to home use for entertainment. It's all exploding. While getting immersed in a virtual world is kind of cool, is it the next target for hackers? Here's WMAR2 News' Mark Roper with what it could mean for your family.
Dr. Ibrahim Bagili gets to play in the world of virtual reality as part of his job, but he suspects the trendy tech isn't just the next frontier for gamers.
Virtual reality is absolutely susceptible to hackers at this point in time.
The doctor and his cyber forensic research team at the University of New Haven say they've uncovered vulnerabilities in popular virtual reality systems. They believe the hacking will be different from anything we've seen before.
I think what's really interesting in VR is for the first time, we have a technology that takes over your complete sight and your complete vision, and now also is slowly taking over your hearing.
In the lab, researchers were able to take over systems and manipulate users physically. Graduate researcher Peter Casey says one way is in something called a chaperone attack.
The chaperone attack is when we either disable or expand the safety boundaries that are keeping the player from moving into any obstacles in the room.
In a human joystick attack, they were able to gradually move people across a room without them realizing it. Casey says it has to do with a false sense of reality.
Whoa! How did I get over here?
This, along with removal of boundaries, can be a concern.
You know, you could walk someone down the stairs.
The group also could turn on cameras and can insert or overlay images right into the middle of an experience.
What that is effectively a ransomware attack where they can no longer use the device as it's intended.
Researchers say there are various ways in which the VR computer may be compromised through malicious email attachments or malicious games. To help protect yourself from potential problems, the researchers say to take precautions like you would with all devices. Keep your VR software and hardware updated along with antivirus software, and only open what you need to on your computer to operate the VR system.
All right, so what are your thoughts on that? Anything interesting? I don't think I will buy one. It'd be a big problem. That's true. Well, I think the metaverse is where we're heading. A lot of money is being poured into that by big tech. At some point, we might have to own, everybody at some point said we don't need a mobile phone. Now, basically, we can't live without our mobile phones. We can't pay without our mobile phones. We can't navigate without our mobile phones. So at some point, mixed reality, I think, is going to reach that point because as humans, we become more and more dependent on technology. So we really need to consider these things. The legislation needs to consider these things, as well as humans just thinking about the future of what we do. So what are some of the things that we learned here? Well, encrypt your devices. Maybe you should not sell your phone. Encrypt your device before wiping. Be careful of the metaverse. I actually don't like that term right now because the metaverse currently in its state does not exist. But that's another conversation we can have. But be aware of the risks it might bring. And the best way to change things is to work together. So consider being part of our growing cybersecurity endeavors at LSU. And I appreciate this opportunity. This is my email address if you feel like reaching out. And thank you very much.
Do we have any questions for Abe? So I'm wondering if everyone is ready to unplug and shut down every device that we have so that we can truly be cyber secure. We know that won't happen, but if you're aware of the threats, you can take appropriate actions. And that was the focus of this presentation. So hopefully we increased your cyber awareness and gave you some basics on how to protect your data and devices. 1 hour is not nearly enough time. So October, I did not mention this at the beginning, but October is actually Cybersecurity Awareness Month. 1 month is not enough to dedicate to cybersecurity. It is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It is constant because the bad guys are constantly changing their attack vectors. It's scary, but the more you get educated, and the more protections you can put in place, you will be inconvenienced by some of them, but you'll be more secure. And that's what we want. We want the entire community to be secure, from you at your home to you at your work to the hospitals to the infrastructure like the water company and energy and our sewer systems, the governments. We just want that level of security to where at some point in the future, hopefully we're not worried about cyber attacks as much because our protections are just basically every day to us now. So I'd encourage you to, there is a question, are there classes for cybersecurity non-credentialed through LSU?
I just responded with
okay,
with a message.
Got it. Okay. And be on the lookout for some, as I mentioned, our cybersecurity, community-based cybersecurity program that we're putting together. We will have some additional education for the public as well. I'd encourage you to visit our city parish website where we share some resources and information on common cybersecurity threats along with one-pagers you can download. These are very, very easy to consume and understand. A lot of pictures, real basic stuff, but a lot of times the basics are the most important. So those resources can be found at www.brla.gov/cybersecurity. And then we're also going to post this video on the site probably tomorrow. We have the videos from the last 2 years that we've did this webinar. So we encourage you to take a look at those. Some of the information 2 years ago may be a bit outdated, but it's still good information. So with that, thanks again to our speakers, and thanks again for joining, and I hope everyone has a great rest of the evening. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.